Hello everybody, my name is Professor Rich, and today I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. What is a suffix and why should you care? Hello there, Sleepwalker, how are you doing? So, suffixes, essentially, a suffix is a word ending. So, if we say, I like eating cheese, then ing here is actually a suffix. Basically, a suffix is the ending part of any word. This blue bit here, the part that says eat, we actually call that the root or the stem. We might call it the word root or the word stem. And anything that we attach to that, whether it's at the start or at the end, is called an affix. And if it's at the start, then we call it a prefix. And if it's at the end, we call it a suffix. So today we're talking about suffixes, which are the words at the end. So basically any root word that you can have all kinds of suffixes on them. Like if we have eat, we could have suffixes such as un, for eaten. We could have s for eats. We could have the ing that we have above for eating. So these are all suffixes. It's that simple. And obviously sometimes you can add more than one suffix to the end of a word. So you could have something like a lus, like hopeless, and then you can have a nus on the end of that, so you get hopelessness. So there's two suffixes being added there. So that's essentially what a suffix is. Now the next question is, why should you care about this? Well, some suffixes have meaning. Not always. Sometimes suffixes are more tied to form than meaning. So a certain suffix basically is used for a noun or an adjective or whatever. But sometimes they do actually have quite a lot of meaning themselves, the actual suffix. Most of the meaning of a word obviously comes from the root, but the suffix can also have meaning. And here we have a suffix which has quite consistent meaning. So this is hopeless. Notice the pronunciation lus, not less, because it's not stressed. So it's lus, hopeless. And as you may know, as you probably know, lus actually means without. So when we say hopeless, what we mean is without hope. So that could be useful for a number of reasons, both in terms of comprehension, but also in terms of actually guessing words or even inventing words. So the thing about suffixes that have meaning is that even if you invent a word using a suffix that has meaning, then it makes perfect sense. And actually, English speakers do this occasionally. So you will actually hear an invented word using a suffix with meaning sometimes. And you can see an invented word that I've got here, which is bananaless. And the sentence says, we are officially bananaless. And what does bananaless mean? Well, bananaless means without bananas, obviously. And this word actually makes perfect sense to any competent English speaker. It's not a word that you'll find in a dictionary. At least I'm not aware of it being in the dictionary. But the point is that you could say something like that and it actually has very understandable meaning. So we have this benefit of, if we are familiar with suffixes and we consciously think a little bit about the meaning of them, then not only will it help our comprehension, but also it actually helps our expression. because we can become able to just use these suffixes in certain ways, and we might guess right. In other words, we might just guess a word and it actually is a word, which happens quite a lot, and you'll find that you kind of develop that over time as you become more and more familiar with suffixes. But also you might be wrong. It might not be a real word, but it'll make perfect sense. And obviously, since our number one objective is good communication, then if it makes sense, that's great, because it means we can actually express ourselves and say the things that we need to say. And there's the other point that I was talking about it aiding comprehension. So if you're familiar with suffixes, then obviously you're better able to guess the meaning of words you haven't seen before. This is just an example. I'm sure everyone knows the word psychology, but if we break it down into the base word and the suffix, we see that psych means mind. So if you can think of other words with psych as a root, then you'll notice how they all relate to mind. And then ology here means the study of. And so psychology is the study of mind. So here are a few words for a bit of practice. So take a look at the list there with the words on the left and the definitions on the right. And see if you can match those words on the left to the definitions on the right. So the words on the left that we have are penniless, hopeful, happiness, government, drinkable, biologist, atheism. And then the definitions on the right we have are you can, someone who does it, a belief system, full of, without, the quality of, and the result of an action. So I want you to match the suffixes there to the meanings. Suffixes 1 to 7, just the suffixes, not the words. So we're focusing on the suffixes at the end. That's the part in red. You can match those to the meanings. You can type your answers into the chat while I just say hello to the few people that we have today. So hello, Julia. And hello, Sylvia. How's everybody doing? Apparently YouTube didn't get the memo. I'll just give you another minute or so to take a look at that, and then we'll go through it. These are actually some of my favorite suffixes, and the reason is because these suffixes in particular do have quite a bit of meaning, and so they can be very helpful in terms of just learning exactly what each of these suffixes actually means, in order to aid your comprehension and in order to aid your expression, as I spoke about before. So, matching the suffixes here to the meaning. Penniless. Less means without. That was the example before. We already looked at that anyway. So we got 1E for penniless. Number 2, hopeful. So full means basically a lot of or full of. We could think of it as being full of, hopeful, full of hope. Number 3, happiness. Ness here. Sleepwalker has gone for someone who does it. That's not right. It's actually F. So happiness is F. It's the quality. The quality of being happy. The quality of what it means to be happy. So if you have happiness, then you are happy. And number 4, government, is actually the result of an action. So what happens when you govern? You become a government. What happens when you judge? Then you create a judgment. Then we've got drinkable. This one's quite an easy one because able, and if you know the meaning of able, then it would help you quite a lot. Drinkable means you can. So drinkable means you can drink it. And when I say you can, I mean in general, people can drink it or it can be drunk. Biologist, an ist. The ist here should be the ist, not the gist. The ist here means someone who does it. So someone who does biologue. And what's biologue, by the way? Bio means life and log is the study of. So it's someone who does the study of life. That's a biologist. And see how it can be helpful when we break words down like this into their parts. And then an ism. Ism is a belief system. So an atheist, an atheist is someone who follows that belief system. An atheism is the belief system. The belief system of what? Well, A means the opposite or not, and the here actually means believing in a god. So atheism is the belief system of not believing in a god. So there you go. You can see how when we break these words up, it does actually help you understand them. And that's why it's useful to do these sorts of activities. So now that we've done that, let's have a look at some words and think about what the root word here might mean. This is kind of doing it the opposite way around. So you can see here we've got 3 words which are all lus. The first thing we're going to do here actually is just match those words with the meanings on the right. So we have dauntless, ruthless, and seamless. Do you know those words? You come across those before? Dauntless, ruthless, and seamless. We'll match those to the words on to the definitions on the right. I'll just give you a few moments to do that. Guess it works better if I schedule the stream earlier in the day. I know that for some people, it works better if they make the stream public at the last moment because YouTube kind of fires it out and it doesn't get lost in like your subscriber box. But it seems that for my channel, it does actually work better if I schedule the stream and make it public a significant amount of time before I go live. So I'll do that next time. Let's have a look here. Have a look at Zoya and Sleepwalker's answers. They've got the same answers, so probably right. So ruthless is without pity or mercy. That's right. Ruthless, meaning that you don't show sympathy or compassion to someone, and typically someone who you're harming, so that's being ruthless. Dauntless is without fear, and seamless is without obvious points of joining, means it's smooth. So we talk about things like a seamless change or a seamless transition, meaning that something changes without an obvious boundary. So if we know these words, if we now know what they mean, so we know dauntless 2, ruthless 1, and seamless 3, then can we have a think about what these words mean? Daunt, ruth, and seam. Now, ruth is actually archaic. It's not used in modern English anymore. Archaic, by the way, means a word that's out of date and isn't in popular use anymore. But sometimes you do find these still in the dictionary. It's just they're a little bit outdated. Sufficiently outdated that a lot of people won't know what you mean if you use them in that sense, the archaic sense. What do you think they mean? Daunt is probably the hardest one, actually. So what is it to daunt? What is ruth? And what is seam? Yeah, you've gone for probably a quite logical guess there, actually, Sleepwalker. And I think I certainly wouldn't blame you for making a guess like that. It actually means... to be made afraid. So it's similar to the idea of fear, but it's actually it's the passive of being made afraid. So if you daunt someone or you are daunted, that means you're being made afraid. Ruth, outdated word, which means mercy, quite simply. So we don't say it anymore, but a few hundred years ago, if you showed ruth, you'd be showing mercy. So if you're ruthless, then you don't show mercy. And seam is a point of joining between two things. That's a seam. Now, these days, we normally use this when it comes to clothing and fabric. So the seam is where two pieces of fabric are joined together. Okay, let's have another go at this. We've got bountiful, resourceful, and insightful. And then definitions on the right. Number 1, someone who understands things deeply. Number 2, contains a lot of good things. And number 3, someone who finds quick ways to solve problems. All right, we have a few answers in the chat from Julia. So let's go through some of these. So bountiful. Bountiful is this idea, number 2, containing a lot of good things or producing a lot of good things. Resourceful is actually number 3, someone who finds quick ways to solve problems. And insightful is number 1, someone who deeply understands things. So if I say that you're very insightful, that means that you're able to understand things deeply. If I say that you're resourceful, then it means that you're able to solve problems quickly and well. And if I say that the land is bountiful, it means that it produces or contains a lot of good things. So then, what are the meanings here of these root words, do you think? What is the meaning of bounty? What's the meaning of resource or resources? And what is the meaning of insight All of these, by the way, are words which are still used. So it's kind of a little bit of a poor show in the first example there, having an archaic word. Here we've got 3 words which are in common use. And the reason why I'm showing you this actually is because these words here with the suffixes sometimes are actually more common than the root forms. So you may have actually come across the word bountiful, but maybe you haven't come across the word bounty before. So yeah, Sleepwalker's saying it's a kind of treasure. Yeah, that's kind of right. It's basically a good thing, a gain, a treasure. Now, resource, that can mean a few things, can't it? And we probably think about raw materials and natural resources. But what just is a resource in a general sense? What is a resource in a general sense? Well, a resource in a general sense is something useful. So when we say that someone's resourceful, it's like they find a lot of useful things to do things with, or even they have a lot of useful things already that they can use to solve problems. And insight is deep understanding. These are all fantastic words, by the way. Using these, you can sound very, very fancy. All right, moving on to the next one. Oh, we don't have a next one. It's the same one. There you go. That's what happens when you multitask, preparing your class and doing research for your masters at the same time. So short but sweet today, folks. A quick little burst, 25 minutes of English class. So what would I say in general about suffixes and word parts? Word parts is the kind of simplistic name for affixes and root words. But let's just call them word parts because that's all they are. We don't need to use the fancy language. Pay attention to them, first and foremost. Try to guess the meaning of word parts that you see commonly. And I think that if you have paid attention to this class, then you'll start to understand why it's helpful to do that. We already talked about those reasons at the start of the class. And don't be afraid to guess or even invent words using word parts. Because people will understand you, and native speakers do it, and you can even do it in writing sometimes, and people do. Even in academic writing sometimes, especially in areas like philosophy, people love to, as we say, coin a new term or coin a phrase, meaning that you're basically creating a new word using exactly this kind of reasoning, that you understand the component parts, you understand the meaning of the word parts, and so you can use those to create something new in order to express yourself. But actually what you'll find is a lot of the time when you guess, it actually turns out that the thing you're guessing is actually a word already. So you start to get like a feeling for it. And this is a great way of course, expanding your vocabulary. So that sort of wraps us up. Short but sweet. Any quick questions from the chat? This is like a power injection of English today, wasn't it? If you've enjoyed that little quick lesson on word parts, then do smash that like button. And I'll remember to schedule my stream in advance in future. Suggestions for future topics, of course, you can put those down below the video, and I would be happy to consider them. We're going to have a class coming up at some point on using AI, using Gen AI, but remaining critically minded. So the critical use of Gen AI, in other words, critical use of ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence. And this is something that I'm studying at the moment, and I'm probably going to be teaching students how to interact critically with generative AI. And the reason is because we can see what is likely to happen for a lot of people if they don't use generative AI in a critical way. In other words, if someone's using generative AI without questioning and evaluating the output, then I think there is a very clear end point to that, and it isn't good for that person. It's kind of like if you sat down and didn't stand up for 5 years, what do you think would happen to your legs? Now, think about that in terms of generative AI. So this is one of the reasons why critical interaction with AI is so important. It's kind of like if you have a job where you're sat down for most of the day, then you should actively go for a walk occasionally. And basically, I'm researching and thinking about a similar idea to that, but applied to generative AI. All right, everybody. We're going to wrap up super quick. Thank you very much for joining me. Just keeping the ball rolling. I will be here next week with a bit of a longer class for you, but I'll just take this opportunity to say, have a lovely weekend. Have a lovely week. And I'll catch you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. All right. Thank you very much. Catch you later.